Michael Carver never expected that coming home 2 hours early would shatter everything he thought he knew about love, family, and the value of a human being. For months, he had watched his son fade, once joyful, now trapped in a failing body, crushed by a diagnosis no parent is ever prepared to hear. And every night, alone in his million-dollar mansion, he wondered if he was already losing him. But on that Tuesday afternoon, Michael heard something impossible. Laughter, his son's laughter. Terrified of hoping, he rushed toward the sound, only to freeze at the doorway. Because the person giving his son strength, joy, and the courage to fight wasn't a doctor, a specialist, or someone with a polished resume. It was Grace, his plus-size janitor. A single mom with rough hands, tired eyes, and a heart big enough to heal the entire world. What Michael discovered next would turn fear into awe, heartbreak into connection, and loneliness into the kind of happiness money can't buy. And by the end of their journey, one truth would rise above everything. Sometimes the miracle you pray for comes from the person you overlooked. Michael Carver wasn't supposed to be home at 3 p.m. The billionaire CEO of Carver Dynamics, Los Angeles' golden boy of tech, was usually still in back-to-back meetings, closing partnerships with men in suits and women in sharp heels, speaking in numbers and projections and shareholder value. But that Tuesday, something in him cracked. The doctor's latest report on his 7-year-old son, Liam, sat in his briefcase like a stone. Duchenne muscular dystrophy, progressive, no cure. We'll focus on comfort and slowing decline, they'd said. It felt like a polite way of saying, there's nothing we can really do. So instead of heading to another meeting, Michael told his driver to take him home. As he stepped into his glass and marble mansion in the Hollywood Hills, he expected silence. That familiar, sterile quiet that had replaced the sound of tiny feet pounding down the hallway. He loosened his tie, exhaled, and started down the long corridor toward his home office. Then he heard it. Laughter. Not the forced, polite chuckles adults use. Real laughter. High and bright and bubbling over. Michael stopped walking. Every muscle in his body tensed. That can't be Liam. The sound was coming from the far end of the hallway, from the room with the superhero posters and the adjustable therapy bed, the room that had become both battlefield and prison. Liam's room. Michael's heart slammed in his chest. He moved quietly, almost afraid to disturb whatever fragile miracle was happening. As he reached the half-closed door, he heard a woman's voice, warm, a little breathless, tinged with a soft, Midwest accent. One more time, buddy. Just like we practiced. You're stronger than you think. Michael pushed the door open an inch and peered inside. What he saw made the blood drain from his face. Liam sat on the floor on a thick exercise mat, his back propped firmly against the bed. His legs, those small, weakening legs that doctors said would keep betraying him, were stretched out in front of him. Kneeling beside him was Grace Walker, the janitor. She was a big woman in her mid-30s, plus size in the way that made cruel people whisper, with soft curves under a faded navy Carver Dynamics polo shirt. Her dark curly hair was pulled into a messy bun, wisps falling around a round, kind face. There was nothing glamorous about her. Her sneakers were worn. Her hands were rough from cleaning chemicals and long shifts, and yet those same hands now moved with careful precision over Liam's calves and ankles, guiding his feet through slow, controlled motions. Okay, Grace said gently. We're gonna dorsiflex, remember that word? Toes toward your nose, little man. Nice and easy. Liam giggled, actually giggled. That word sounds like a dinosaur, he said. Dorsiflex! Roar! Grace laughed with him, the sound rich and genuine. If there was a dinosaur named Dorsiflex, he'd have the strongest legs in the whole Jurassic Park. Now, breathe in and pull. Liam took a deep breath, his small face scrunching up in concentration. His toes trembled, then slowly, so slowly, pulled back toward his body. His quads quivered from the effort. Grace's eyes sparkled. There you go. That's it, Liam. That's real muscle activation. I felt that. Did you feel that? He nodded, pride shining brighter than any hospital monitor. I did it again, he said, breathless. You did, she replied, voice thick with emotion. You're building dorsiflexor strength and working on ankle mobility. That's how we keep you moving. You're doing incredible. Michael's mind tried to catch up. Dorsiflexor strength? Ankle mobility? She was naming muscles, not mops. Her thumbs pressed into specific points along his son's legs with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. How far to push, when to stop, where to support. Not a random stretch, a structured exercise sequence. His first instinct was pure anger. Who gave her permission? His second was something far more painful, jealousy, because it wasn't just the exercises, it was Liam's face, the light in his eyes, the way he leaned into Grace, comfortable, trusting, at ease in a body that had given him nothing but frustration and fear for the last 3 years. That used to be me, Michael thought. I used to be the one who made him smile like that. Okay, Grace whispered, softer now. Remember what we said yesterday? You're not just a kid in a wheelchair, right? What are you? Liam puffed up a little, trying to steady his breathing. I'm a fighter pilot, he declared. On a mission. That's right. She grinned. And these legs are your engines. We keep them tuned. We keep them moving. One mission at a time. Before Michael could stop himself, his hand pushed the door all the way open. Grace jerked her head up, eyes widening as she saw him. Liam, still glowing with victory, broke into a huge smile. Dad, you're home early. The word dad hit him with a mix of joy and guilt. He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Yeah, he said slowly, stepping into the room. His gaze remained fixed on Grace's hands, still resting gently on Liam's shins. Looks like I picked an interesting time. Grace's cheeks flushed. She shifted back, carefully repositioning Liam's legs on a small pillow. Mr. Carver, I can explain. Michael's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. I'm sure you can. He glanced at his son, then back at the plus-size single mom in a faded uniform who'd just been doing what highly paid specialists had never dared to try, and doing it well. How? He asked quietly. Does a janitor know the language and techniques of a licensed physical therapist? The question hung in the room like a storm cloud. For the first time since he'd hired her, Michael really looked at Grace Walker and had the unsettling feeling that nothing in his life was as simple as he'd believed. Grace froze. For a full 3 seconds, she didn't even breathe. Her hands, those gentle, shockingly skilled hands, went still against the mat. She swallowed hard, wiped her palms on her uniform, and sat back on her heels as if bracing for a blow. Dad, Liam whispered, uncertainty creeping into his voice. Michael forced himself to soften for his son. It's okay, buddy. Why don't you grab your tablet and watch something in the living room? I need to talk to Miss Grace for a minute. Liam hesitated, his eyes darting between the two adults, sensing tension like a barometer senses storms. But then he nodded. Okay. Grace helped lift him gently into his wheelchair, buckling the safety strap with careful hands. The entire time she avoided Michael's gaze. When Liam rolled out, the room fell silent. Only then did Michael speak. "You want to tell me what I just walked in on?" Grace's shoulders curled inward, as if trying to make herself smaller. "I'm sorry, Mr. Carver. I know how it looked." "It looked," he said sharply, "like you were performing unsupervised physical therapy on a child with a degenerative muscular disease." She flinched, but she didn't deny it. Michael rubbed a hand over his face, breath unsteady. "Grace, you're a janitor. You clean floors. You take out trash. You are not trained for—" Her head snapped up, eyes suddenly bright with something raw. "Don't say it like that." The words surprised him. Her tone surprised him even more. Not defiant, but wounded. "I know what I look like to people," she continued quietly. "A plus-size single mom in a cheap uniform. Someone who barely finished community college. Someone who should stick to cleaning supplies and stay in her lane. But I wasn't trying to play doctor. I would never endanger your boy." "Then what were you doing?" Michael pressed. Grace exhaled shakily, her hands twisted in her lap. For a moment she looked ready to fold into herself and apologize until he kicked her out. But then something shifted in her expression. Resolve, fragile but real. "You asked how I knew those techniques," she said softly. "It wasn't from a textbook. It was from my daughter." That made him pause. Grace took another breath. "My little girl, Emma. She's 9, born premature. Diagnosed with motor delays and sensory processing disorder when she was 3. Her legs were so weak she couldn't climb stairs. Her balance was so bad she'd tip over just standing still. And therapy—" She shook her head bitterly. "Therapy was expensive, Mr. Carver. Insurance barely covered anything. Specialists cost more per hour than I made in a day." Her eyes glistened. "So I learned it myself." Michael blinked. "You taught yourself physical therapy?" "No," she said quietly. "A therapist taught me. After I admitted I couldn't afford to bring my daughter more than twice a month, one specialist took pity on us. She trained me during Emma's sessions. She showed me every technique, every muscle group, every stretch. She even let me film notes so I could practice with Emma at home." Grace swallowed. "When Emma's dad left, it was just me and her. I had to choose between rent and therapy, between food and hospital bills. So I learned enough to keep my baby girl walking, to give her a chance to play, to smile." Her voice cracked. "Emma can run now. Not fast, but she can. Not because we could afford care, but because I refused to let her fall behind." Michael's breath left him in a slow, stunned exhale. He'd expected an excuse, not a life story, not the kind of pain he recognized in his own chest. Grace wiped her cheek quickly, almost angrily, as if embarrassed to cry in front of a billionaire. "When I saw Liam struggling, when I saw how scared he was to move, it reminded me of Emma. I wasn't trying to replace your specialists. I was just trying to give him a reason to believe in his body again." Michael stepped closer without realizing it. The room felt smaller, fuller. "You should have asked me," he said, quieter now but still firm. "I know." She nodded. "I was afraid you'd say no. And Liam, he needed hope right now, not a 2-week approval process. He hated how that was true." "How long have you been doing this?" he asked. 3 weeks. She winced. "Only when Liam seemed up for it. Only safe, low-impact stuff." Michael raked a hand through his hair, pacing once before turning back to her. "Grace, you put me in an impossible position. You understand that? Yes, she whispered. But, he added slowly, you also did something no professional has managed in months. Her eyes lifted, surprised and unsure. Liam laughed today, Michael said, voice rough. I haven't heard that in, God, I don't even know how long. Grace pressed her lips together, fighting tears again, this time for a different reason. Michael studied her. This plus-size, soft-spoken, gentle woman with calloused hands and a tired face had been carrying a story he never bothered to look for. Come downstairs, he said finally. Her brow creased. Why? Because we need to continue this conversation, Michael replied, voice calm but resolute. And I want to know everything. About you, about what you did for my son, and why a janitor knows more compassion and technique than the highest-paid therapists money can buy. Grace stared at him, stunned, then slowly nodded and rose to her feet. As she followed him down the hallway, she had no idea that this conversation, this moment, would unravel secrets, change lives, and turn a grieving billionaire and a weary single mother into something neither of them ever expected. Something like a family. The kitchen felt different that afternoon. Warm light pooling over the marble countertops. The faint smell of citrus cleaner lingering in the air. Grace sat at the far end of the island, hands clasped so tightly that her knuckles whitened. Michael stood opposite her, sleeves rolled up, looking less like a billionaire CEO and more like a tired father trying to understand something that didn't fit into his spreadsheets. Start from the beginning, he said gently. Not just about Emma, about you. Grace swallowed hard. There's not much to tell. I think, Michael said, there's more than you let yourself believe. For a moment she seemed ready to shut down. But then she sighed, shoulders dropping slightly as if lowering a weight she'd been carrying for years. My life hasn't been pretty, Grace began. I had Emma when I was 25. Her father left before she turned 2. He said he couldn't handle a special needs kid. Like she was some kind of burden he didn't sign up for. Michael felt a hot flare of anger on behalf of a woman he barely knew. So it was just us, she continued. I worked nights at a grocery store, then cleaning jobs. I learned every free resource available for parents of disabled kids. I attended seminars I didn't belong to, hounded therapists with questions, took buses across the city to affordable clinics. Anything that would help Emma walk, talk, keep up. Her voice softened. When she finally took 5 steps on her own, I swear it felt like the whole world shifted. Michael leaned forward. You sound like someone with training. I sound, she corrected softly, like a mother who couldn't afford help. Silence stretched between them, heavy, vulnerable. What about before Emma? He asked. Grace gave a humorless laugh. Before her, I was a mess. I dropped out of community college to work full-time. My mom passed when I was 19. I bounced between cheap apartments. I had dreams once, but... She shrugged. Life doesn't care about dreams when rents do. Michael didn't speak. He just watched her, really watched her, for the first time. The plus-size woman in a faded uniform who smiled kindly while scrubbing floors had lived a harder life than most CEOs could imagine, and she never once complained. Grace, he said quietly, you saved my son today. Her eyes widened. No, I didn't. Yes, he insisted. You did something I didn't think was possible. You made him believe again. Grace looked down, blinking fast. Liam deserves someone who sees more than his diagnosis. Her words pierced him deeply, because they were true. Michael had been living in fear, signing checks, consulting doctors, building his company higher and higher, while forgetting that his son didn't need perfection. He needed connection. "Can I ask something?" Grace said suddenly, surprising him. "Why were you really home early today?" He hesitated. Then he chose honesty. "I got the latest report from Liam's neurologist." He took a breath. "The outlook isn't good. Progression is inevitable. They want us to prepare for the worst." Grace's expression softened with pure empathy. Not pity, but understanding. "I'm scared," Michael admitted, barely above a whisper. "I'm terrified every day." Grace nodded. "Me too." "What?" he asked gently. "For Emma. Every time she falls. Every time she freezes up in a crowd. I'm scared that I'm not enough for her. That I'm failing her." Michael stared at her. This woman who had stitched her life together with scraps and still managed to give love so steady, so unconditional, that it had reached his son in ways money never could. "You're not failing her," he said. "And you're not failing Liam," she replied. The room went quiet again, but this time the silence felt different, warmer. "I didn't tell you the rest," Grace said softly. Michael exhaled. "There's more?" She nodded. "After Emma started improving, I didn't want other kids like her to fall through the cracks. So twice a week on my days off, I volunteer at a community center downtown. I show parents simple techniques they can use at home: gentle mobility work, sensory input routines, balance games." Michael blinked, stunned. "You volunteer? For free?" Grace smiled sadly. "Money doesn't matter when you're helping a scared kid take their first real step." That was when something inside Michael shifted. This wasn't just a kind woman. This was a force of nature disguised in an oversized polo shirt. And he knew, deep in his gut, that Grace Walker had walked into his mansion for a reason. Before he could speak, footsteps pattered down the hall. Liam appeared in the doorway, clutching his tablet, cheeks flushed. "Dad?" he asked. "Is Miss Grace in trouble?" Grace shook her head gently. "No, sweetheart." Michael looked at her, then at his son, and something inside him settled into place. "Actually," he said slowly, "I think Miss Grace just changed everything." And he meant every word. What he didn't yet know was that the world was about to change even more, through a discovery that would shake him, test them both, and push them toward a truth neither was ready for. A truth only love could hold. For 2 weeks, life inside the Carver mansion felt lighter, almost like healing had seeped into the walls. Grace wasn't just the janitor anymore. She arrived early, not to clean, but to help Liam stretch his legs, loosen tight muscles, and practice small mobility drills that felt like victories. She adjusted pillows, built makeshift obstacle paths, and encouraged him with stories about fighter pilots and dinosaur muscles. Michael watched most of it quietly from the doorway, not wanting to interrupt what had become the most important hour of his son's day. Every time Liam laughed, something inside Michael cracked open and softened a little more. He trusted Grace, maybe more than he had ever trusted a professional. But trust, like muscle, can tear when pushed too far. It happened on a Thursday afternoon, during what should have been a routine session. Liam was determined, too determined. He wanted to impress Grace. She'd told him last week he was stronger than he thought, and the words had burrowed deep into his chest, like a spark ready to burn bright. "Let's try the new balance drill," Liam said excitedly. "The one with the step block." Grace hesitated. "Only if you feel steady today." "I'm steady," he insisted. "I want to show Dad how strong I am later." That did it. Grace's face softened. "Okay, sweetheart. Slow and safe, remember?" She set up the foam block just a few inches off the mat. Nothing dangerous. Liam braced himself on her forearms, inhaled, and tried stepping up. His leg trembled, then jerked, then completely seized. "Ah, my legs hurt." Okay, breathe, Liam, breathe." Grace lowered him to the mat instantly, supporting his back, but panic was already spiraling through him. Michael heard the scream from his office. He sprinted down the hallway so fast he nearly slipped, bursting into the room with fear already clawing at his throat. What happened? Liam was curled over, crying, gripping his thighs. Grace hovered near him, hands trembling. "It's a muscle spasm. I must have pushed him too fast." "You what?" Michael's voice cracked with fear and fury. "He's in pain. I'm trying to help." "Help?" Michael barked. "This is help to you. My son is screaming." Liam sobbed harder. "Dad, it hurts." Michael scooped him into his arms, heart pounding so violently it hurt. "It's okay, buddy. I'm here, I've got you." He didn't look at Grace. Couldn't. Not with his boy trembling in his arms. At the hospital, the diagnosis came quickly. Severe muscle strain, painful but not dangerous. 2 weeks of rest needed. But the damage, the real damage, was already done. When Grace arrived at the doorway of the hospital room with a paper crane Emma had folded for Liam, Michael stepped outside to meet her. His face was unreadable. "I think you should go home," he said quietly. Her breath hitched. "Michael, please, I didn't mean—" "He's in pain because of you." His words were soft, but cut like steel. "Because I trusted you." Grace's eyes filled instantly. "I misjudged. I'm so sorry." "My son," he said, voice breaking, "is not your experiment." The hallway was cold, too cold. Grace wiped her cheeks, nodding slowly. "I'll take responsibility. If you need to fire me—" "This isn't about your job," Michael said. "This is about my son, and I can't let you near him right now." Her breath shook. "Please tell Liam I'm sorry." He hesitated, just for a second, because a part of him saw the devastation in her eyes. But fear was louder than compassion. "I think it's better if he doesn't see you for a while." Grace pressed a hand over her mouth, nodded, and walked away without another word. Her footsteps echoed down the sterile hallway until they faded into silence. Michael returned to the room and sat beside Liam's bed. His son's cheeks were wet with dried tears. "Dad," he whispered, "is Miss Grace coming back?" Michael swallowed hard. "She needs time right now." Liam looked away, eyes dimming. "I miss her. She never made me feel broken." Those words gutted him. For the first time since Grace walked into their lives, the house and the hospital both felt unbearably hollow. But the real storm was still ahead, because in the next days, Michael would learn a truth that would change everything he believed about Grace Walker and about himself. For the next 2 weeks, the Carver mansion felt like a haunted house, quiet, heavy, echoing with everything that wasn't there. No morning laughter, no gentle encouragement drifting down the hall, no Grace. Liam lay in his bed or wheelchair, silent. He participated half-heartedly with the new team of high-end therapists Michael hired. He answered questions with one-word replies. He stopped asking to practice, stopped smiling. Every night, Michael sat beside him, guilt gnawing at his ribs. Then one night, Liam finally spoke. "Dad?" Michael smoothed his hair. "Yeah, buddy?" Liam's voice cracked like thin glass. "Do you hate Miss Grace?" The question froze him in place. "No," Michael whispered honestly. "I don't." "Then why isn't she here?" His lower lip trembled. "She didn't hurt me on purpose." Michael's throat tightened. I know. I wanted to show her I could do the new exercise. I pushed myself too hard so she would be proud. Tears welled in his eyes. That wasn't her fault. Those words hit Michael harder than any boardroom battle, harder than the worst medical report. His son trusted Grace, believed in her, and Michael had ripped that away out of fear. The next morning, he called Dr. Lewis, Liam's neurologist, and demanded honesty. "Tell me the truth," Michael said. Was Liam actually improving when Grace was helping him? Dr. Lewis sighed and opened the medical file. "Michael, I've compared the last 6 months of results to the year before." He slid the chart across the desk. Liam made remarkable progress. Strength in several muscle groups increased by nearly 40%, coordination by 50%. Michael stared at the numbers, stunned. "But Duchenne patients don't improve," he whispered. "I know. That's why this is extraordinary." The doctor leaned back. "And the strain? That can happen under any rehab program, even mine. Grace handled it appropriately." Silence. "You're not asking me if she's dangerous," Dr. Lewis added gently. "You're asking if you made a mistake." Michael closed his eyes. He already knew the answer. "Bring her back," Dr. Lewis said. "But this time, let's work together. Medical science and emotional connection. Liam needs both." That afternoon, Michael drove to a modest apartment complex in Echo Park, the address Grace had listed on her employment form. He knocked. The door opened, and a small girl with wild brown curls peered up at him. "You're Liam's daddy." Michael blinked. "Hi. You must be Emma." She nodded shyly, then held out a drawing, 3 stick figures under a yellow sun. "That's Liam," she pointed. "And that's Miss Grace. And that's you." Michael swallowed hard. "Thank you, sweetheart." Grace appeared behind her, eyes red as if she'd been crying for days. When she saw Michael, she stopped short. "What are you doing here?" she whispered. "I came to apologize," he said simply. Grace inhaled sharply, but didn't move closer. She stood like someone ready to be told, "You're fired," or worse. "Grace," he began, "I let fear speak louder than truth, and that hurt you. It hurt my son. And it wasn't fair." Her voice was shaky. "I didn't mean to let him get hurt. I replay it in my head every night." "I know." He took a small step forward. "And I know you love him. That matters more than any certification." Grace's eyes filled. "I do love him, like he's part of my family." "He feels the same," Michael said softly. "He misses you. He said you're the only one who never made him feel broken." She covered her mouth, a sob slipping out. Michael's voice wavered. "My son needs you, and I need you and his care team. If you're willing to come back, Dr. Lewis wants to work with you." Grace stared, stunned. You want me to help again, after everything?" "Yes," Michael said. "Not as a janitor, as someone who changed my son's life when no one else could." And then quietly, "As someone who changed mine." Grace's breath caught. Before she could answer, a small voice called from inside. "Mom, is Liam okay now?" Grace smiled through tears. "He will be." She looked back at Michael, hope flickering like a fragile flame. "I'll come back," she whispered. A week later, Liam returned home from the hospital. When he rolled into the living room and saw Grace standing there, panic flashed across his face. Then joy exploded like sunshine. "Miss Grace!" He hurled himself forward as far as his weak legs allowed. Grace dropped to her knees and caught him, hugging him tight. "I missed you so much, little man." "I missed you too," he sobbed. Michael watched from the doorway, chest full and aching. Grace looked back at him, eyes shining with something neither of them dared name, something tender, steady, unspoken. "Ready to get back to work?" she whispered to Liam. The boy nodded fiercely, and just like that, the house felt alive again, full again, healing again. Because love, messy, imperfect, ordinary love, had walked back through the door. And this time, none of them were letting go.